He is going to
Yeah,
just be playing
there's none at
a
all.
Dondozo team.
Yeah, and looking at his team, there's definitely no weather here, but they have their own speed control in the form of that Talonflame. So I guess that's their way of trying to cope with the faster teams that go under, I guess, rain, as you may think about it, as well as those teams that may possibly use chlorophyll under sun, considering that Torkoal is popular right now. And we also have, the very common choice scarf Tatsugiri, if worst comes to worst.
If worst comes to worst, yeah, if the Dondozo does go down, and I'm looking at this Dondozo and I'm thinking it really does not want to get countered by Amoonguss. Has that Terra Steel, has that safety goggles. So
Exactly.
if the Amoonguss has Clear Smog, has Spore, not gonna do anything to this Dondozo here. Yeah, really does not want to get countered by that. Of course, there is still the threat of, Primarinas that run Haze, but not gonna have to face that in this matchup. Also, the safety goggles, not really gonna help him here either, but, still an interesting item to have on Dondozo. And I also want to take note of this Goldango here, because it is, in a way, a typical choice spec set with Trick, but this one actually has Protect. Probably, in case it does get rid of those choice specs after Trick, does still have that Protect option, which I think is very interesting.
Yeah, it's also very possible that the Goldango just goes for the Protect and in the very next turn switches into the Tatsugiri so that the Dondozo would get the Commander boost. So I guess that's one alternative mode if they still don't get rid of the choice specs. But yeah, I guess it's just a typical kind of set where you want to give the Trick choice specs to another Pokemon that does not want it.
Oh yeah, I can see a few Pokemon on Olavi's team that, probably wouldn't want to have a choice specs. And yeah, the Pawmot also being very interesting here with the Dondozo. Of course, if a Tatsugiri or Dondozo goes down, Pawmot can just bring them right back. So, what's more annoying than having to take out one Dondozo is having to take out two Dondozos. But yeah, I think Olavi might have some tools here for this Dondozo. Although I misread the team sheet. I thought he didn't have an Amoonguss, but he does have an Amoonguss, and it does have Clear Smog. So the Dondozo, the perfect set here for this specific Pokemon, and otherwise also the Incineroar, the Garchomp, the Dragonite, the Ninetales, and of course the Kingambit.
Oh yeah, and I also noticed that, and I was like thinking, oh, what a perfect time to run this specific set of a Dondozo. You're not gonna worry about a thing with that Amoonguss, but the problem is, Steinar might be too predictable in terrestrializing into the Steel type, and the Incineroar could capitalize on it by throwing out a Flare Blitz. So there's gonna be some mind games there for sure.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I mean, when it comes to, the physical Pokemon, like the Garchomp, you can technically get a Will-O-Wisp off. Still gonna be a threat. Also the Dragonite on the Kingambit, but the Incineroar, you cannot burn it. It is a fire type.
Exactly,
and that
yeah.
Flare Blitz could be very, very painful here. Of course, you have to respect the Wave Crash. So that is another thing to keep in mind. And I guess also the thing with Incineroar, the Dondozo being unaware means that you can maybe intimidate it once or twice, get some fake outs off. So yeah, Olavi definitely gonna have to keep that Dondozo in the back of his mind, especially since, this Ninetales, it's not playing Aurora Veil, so no way to, make your mons more defensive.
That's a good catch right there. I also didn't notice that it didn't have Aurora Veil just now. So I guess it's a disruptive kind, trading off the Aurora Veil for that Encore and having, Protect just to fish out some turns, I guess.
Yeah, and I believe game 1 is ready, so I'd say let's just hop into that and see how both of these players decide to lead. Dondozo, usually a Pokemon you have in the back, but yeah, it is going to be Dragonite Incineroar here up against the Pawmot and the Talonflame. So maybe Talonflame trying to, get a Tailwind off, or maybe even a Will-O-Wisp before the Dondozo comes in.
Yeah, and right here, it's worth noting that this Dragonite is multi-scale, so it is susceptible to a fake out from that Pawmot. And, the Talonflame having the Covert Cloak can't be stopped by the opposing Incineroar's fake out. So it's very much likely that the Incineroar on the part of Olavi will be switched out for better positioning or pivoting. And possibly, it might even be a double switch if you think about it, to preserve that multi-scale on the Dragonite here. So very good leads on the part of Steinar, if I may give my own perspective on it. Because, right now, he has two Pokemon that are faster than the other side and are not weakened or hindered by the fake out on that instant.
Yeah, perspective is exactly what we're here for. So Dragonite gonna switch into the Amoonguss here, which interesting to see. It still came along. Although it can't do much for the Dondozo, it can do something for the rest of the team. Close combat here into the Incineroar after the Tailwind from the Talonflame, gonna do good damage here. No fake outs from Incineroar yet, is just gonna go for a knockoff to get rid of Talonflame's covered claw. So, if the Incineroar switches out and comes back in, Talonflame can, or is susceptible to a fake out. But, maybe the Tailwind is really all it had to do, and maybe try and get a Brave Bird on the Amoonguss before the Dondozo comes in.
Oh yeah, for sure. And it's worth noting that the Amoonguss on the team of Olavi doesn't have Protect. So it's a very easy target for Taunt. And it's just a matter of, do you want to use Rage Powder right now to ensure that the Incineroar slot does not take any unnecessary damage, since that spot of the Amoonguss is always going to get taunted for the most part, or you just want to throw out a damaging move in order to take out that Pokesash.
Yeah, the Incineroar being so low, coming back in here is the Dragonite now, means that, something like a knockup and then a Spore is going to be even harder to pull off now. Talonflame going to taunt the Amoonguss here as the double shot comes out here from the Palma. Dragonite taking that very well thanks to the multi-scale, of course. Palmot now only a fighting type move, no more electric typing for it, and Amoonguss, of course, is not going to be able to go for a Spore after that taunt.
Yeah, that was a very good taunt right now, considering that Olavi tried to go for the Spore. I guess they were just trying to outthink Steinar in that regard. But now, with that happening, I guess the Amoonguss is at a dead position. All the more that the Dragonite has lost its multi-scale ability. Now, Palmot and Talonflame could easily just attack it, but it's very obvious as well that the Amoonguss will switch out to the Incineroar in order to mitigate all that physical damage, considering that Palmot and Talonflame are physical attackers. So that kind of switch would be a very good option, especially since it also resets the taunt on the Amoonguss.
Yeah, Steinar just barely locking in that turn there. The Palmot gonna switch out into the Dondozo here. And yeah, of course the Talonflame could go for a Will-O-Wisp onto the Dragonite, but it does have that Lumberry, so the first status is going to be healed. It is going to be the Garchomp coming in here now for Olavi. And the Dragonite is going to finish off this Talonflame with an extreme speed. And, like I said before, I feel like Talonflame, okay, a few Tailwind turns have already been used. But, this is a very free switch in to the Tatsugiri here. Or you can also go for the Palmot and, try to get another fake out off. And maybe go for an order up on either on these Dragon Pokemon to, be able to finish them off next turn.
Yeah, that's very much the case. And I think on the part of Olavi, you'd probably want to protect that Garchomp or preserve it and maybe switch out the Dragonite, if not vice versa, considering that this Dondozo does not have Clear Amulet and is susceptible to the intimidates of the Incineroar. So I think at this point, on the part of Olavi, you'd want to suppress as much or mitigate as much damage coming out of that Dondozo before trying to clean up the game, if not slowly but surely. Especially since we all know that once the Commander boost comes out, it becomes quite of a raid boss itself.
Yeah, I wouldn't have been surprised to maybe just see the Palmot also just, switch back out to maybe bait Olavi a little bit. But no switches yet. The Dragonite gonna go for a pair of Flying here. So if a double shot comes out, that is gonna be a super effective move. Dondozo going for the Protect, so no fake out from Palmot here. Or no, Palmot actually is just gonna go for a fake out. Okay, I would have expected, since the Dondozo goes for the Protect, that you just maybe go for a double shot here. But yeah, maybe just stalling for a turn, and the Earthquake here is going to bring the Palmot down to its Focus Sash.
Yeah, and I think going the Terra Flying is an interesting choice, considering that Dragonite is naturally flying, so it wouldn't get hit by the Earthquake anyway. And yeah, I think I don't know if I'm just missing something here, but the play makes sense. But I think the Terastallization could have been saved there. for later. But right now, this Pomot just lost its Focus Sash, and that double shock could have been a very good move onto that Dragonite, since, we did see that the Terralicization was used on it.
Yeah, I think, on the one hand with the Terra Flying, you do get, the Flying type Terra Blast, and you do get rid of the Dragon weakness. But of course, the Double Shock is something you have to respect as well, since, that suddenly becomes super effective, and you've already lost your multi-scale, and the Palmot is not intimidated right now. But yeah, works out just fine here for Olavi. But now the Stondozo is coming in here, gonna get that Commander boost, raising all of its stats. 5+2. Dragonite gonna go for a Protect here. Let's see who the Dondozo decided to target this turn. It is gonna be an order up into the Garchomp. Gonna be not quite enough damage, but will boost the Dondozo's attack. So yeah, it's starting to become very dangerous.
Yeah, that was a very good read on the part of Steinar, throwing that order up onto the Garchomp. And, at least he mitigates the damage, considering that the Dragonite did protect that turn. And the Garchomp does fall to its own life orb. So we're basically at the end game now, Shona. And it's a matter of, does Olavi have enough offensive pressure to take down this Dondozo, which is boosted by its Commander boost. And, it just got its order up in place, so it's able to go back up one stage of attack.
Yeah, the one good thing I suppose that the Amoonguss could do here is maybe threaten or force the Dondozo to go for that Terra Steel. If that somehow helps Olavi to maybe hit it with something like a low kick. And of course the other thing that the Amoonguss can do is go for Pollen Puffs on the Dragonite to heal it back up. But the Dondozo, the more it goes for order up, is just going to boost its attack more and more, to the point where maybe you cannot even heal up enough. And since the Dragonite has lost its Dragon typing, Dondozo is also free to just go for a Wave Crash, which at +3 attack might just be enough to take out this Dragonite. It is gonna go for a Terra Steel here to, of course, be immune to any clear smogs that might come here. And Amoonguss going for that Rage Powder. So maybe Olavi not reading on the team sheet that the Dondozo is carrying that safety goggles, and the Dragonite is just going to faint to that Wave Crash. That was a mighty water move.
Yeah, I think that was a misplay on the part of Olavi, but also at the same time, he doesn't really have that much options anyway once that Dondozo goes into the Terra Steel, other than to throw a Pollen Puff on it, since it's already immune to Spore, Rage Powder, and Clear Smog. So yeah, things are not looking good for that Amoonguss right now, considering that, the safety goggles are paying dividends on the part of Steinar.
Yeah, I'm not, I think or not, maybe not all of us, but a lot of us have definitely had that happen to us, that we've
for sure.
and then, gone for plays like that. But yeah, Olavi here really not in a great position now. Of course, the Amoonguss can go for a Pollen Puff here this turn, but that's just not going to be enough to save the Incineroar from a +3 Wave Crash. So I think at this point, maybe Olavi already thinking about, the game 2 and what kind of adjustments he can make.
Yeah, I think, being a player myself, when you're in a losing game such as the one now, you just want to maximize the time and think, okay, where did I go wrong and what can I do about it going into the next game? Because, every second of this counts, and every moment to try and go back to a reset of your mentality is so helpful in the long run of VGC, considering, it's first to 2 wins anyway. So yeah, hopefully we get to see Olavi make the necessary adjustments, because that Amoonguss, left all alone right now, and it's not looking too good for the little one.
The safety goggles is now burned into Olavi's mind. So yeah, that first game, we already said the Dondozo seems to have a relatively good matchup against Olavi's Pokemon. We didn't see the Ninetales or the King Gambit, which I think Ninetales, fair enough, that Dondozo is pretty much gonna go for a Terra Steel probably in every game. But, that does give you an opportunity to hit it with things like Stomping Tantrum or even Earthquake, Low Kick. You have Low Kick on the King Gambit as well, Flare Blitz on the Incineroar. So, Olavi definitely has options. He just has to respect those safety goggles. But as we saw, Amoonguss, it can still go for Pollen Puffs. It just existing means that the Dondozo has to go for that Terra Steel. to not lose its stats.
Yeah, and I think as you did mention, that Dondozo is the main obstacle for Olavi to overcome, and I think it's all a matter of, can you bait out the Terra Steel so that you can take advantage of it using the necessary moves, such as the low kick on the Dragonite and the Earthquake or Stomping Tantrum on the Garchomp. So I think Olavi's gonna need to, outsmart Steiner for that regard, because while that, Dondozo is in its water typing, Olavi can go for the Spore, but no, not Spore, rather, maneuver around it, such as possible freeze dries or neutral extreme speed. But once the Terra Steel does come out, I think that's the moment Olavi must capitalize on.
Yeah, but we also saw that Steinar was very careful with bringing in the Dondozo. He really didn't rush into it at all.
Exactly.
The Tailwind turns, he didn't really care about whether they run out or not. Really took his time, brought in the Palmot first, even went for like a very passive fake out protect play. So really took his time. So that is, the first obstacle you have to get across before you start taking care of the Dondozo. And game 2 is ready, so we are going to hop into that and see if there are any adjustments here from both players. Maybe the Pokemon you brought were fine and you just have to play a little differently, but as you mentioned, there is the Ninetales next to the Incineroar this time, and once again facing off against the Palmot and the Talonflame.
Yeah, so we're seeing Fire and Ice. What a duo right here on the part of Olavi. So, Song of Fire and Ice, if there's one to name it on. But yeah, we see the same thing coming on the part of Steiner here with the Talonflame and Palmot, because if it worked the first time pretty well, then why not just do it again? And right now, that Palmot is in a really good position, considering that the stab close combat will do neutral damage to the Ninetales, but more so super effective damage onto the Incineroar. And the only Pokemon on the back that could possibly resist it would be the Amoonguss and the Dragonite. So if Olavi does switch in either of the two, that's still information coming out in favor of Steinar. So I pretty much can see that, it's possible to just see a Tailwind and close combat again.
Steiner taking his time to lock in each one of his moves is making me very anxious every single turn, I have to say. But Talonflame can go for a Brave Bird here into the Incineroar. Gonna be able to take that very, very well thanks to the Intimidate. Followed up by a -1 close combat. Barely misses the KO on the Incineroar. Snow, it's not hail anymore, so it's not gonna knock out the Incineroar this turn yet. It's gonna go for a knockoff on this Talonflame, knock off that covered cloak. And now Dragonite coming in here means, of course, that it could easily take out this Talonflame with that extreme speed.
Yeah, I think that's what Olavi is trying to go for, to stop the Tailwinds coming up immediately. And right now, the Incineroar isn't, because of that invisible Focus Sash on the Incineroar, you can easily switch it back out now for a better position. And the Dragonite can easily take down that Talonflame with an extreme speed. And considering the Talonflame isn't Terra Ghost, so we won't see any, mishaps there. And on the part of Palmot, I guess, you just want to try and take out the multi-scale on the Dragonite, since it's already there. You might as well create some progress. As you did mention earlier, Steiner going slow and steady on that part.
And it is going to be the Dondozo switching in here, so, Talonflame switching out here can come back in later, and Palmot also switching, so we are just going to see the Dondozo mode here active for Steinar. And so yeah, in contrast to the last game, this time going for it very, very early, but that of course also means, you can start going for order up boosts earlier. The Dragonite is on the field. It still has the multi-scale, but maybe 2 order ups could probably be enough, and this Incineroar here could knock off the safety goggles, but instead it is going to switch.
Yeah, and I think there we go. It is the Garchomp. So as we did mention earlier, I think at this point, if you are Olavi, you just want to throw out all the damage you can on that Dondozo, considering that because of the commander boost coming out from Tatsugiri, it's essentially a 2 versus 1. So it's really a damage race right now for both sides. But for the Dondozo, I guess it's quite a difficult setup since you can't Terra Steel, definitely. Otherwise, you just get hit by the low kicks and the earthquakes, or even the Sonic Tantrums.
And Incineroar is going to switch back in here thanks to its survival. It can go for one last Intimidate. And the Dondozo is going to go for a Order Up here. The multi-scale helping the Dragonite take that fairly well. Dondozo is going to boost its attack right back up. And the low kick is barely going to do any damage at all to this Dondozo. So a very, very tanky Dondozo here. Which means that, you know, it might need some time to actually start doing dealing damage, you know, get some more order up boosts, but yeah, those are gonna come, you know, quicker than Olavi probably wants them to. He does have a turn of fake out pressure here from the Incineroar, but of course he could also predict the Dondozo just going for a protect and maybe switch the Incineroar right back out to maybe, you know, bring the Intimidate back in and kind of, you know, slow down this Dondozo so it doesn't get too many boosts in just a few turns.
Yeah, I was thinking of the same thing, right? Just then, as you mentioned it, and that low kick doing only 39 damage, especially since, you know, it's not a stab boosted move, and Dondozo just taking it neutrally hit with +2 defensive boosts right there. And we do see indeed the Dragonite just going for the safe protect and Intimidate being shuffled back out. So, you know, just trying to suppress the damage coming out of this Dondozo as it goes for the order up onto the protect. And thankfully, it's no longer the same as before where the order up boost still happens despite the protect. So
what a time
that's
that
good.
was.
Yeah, what a time we lived back then.
But yeah, the Ninetales being immune to the order up here means that, yeah, Dondozo not going to get a boost, and it is going to have to, you know, go for that Terra Steel now, so it doesn't get hit super effective by any freeze dries from this Ninetales. But that does, of course, also make it weak to low kicks and also to stomping tantrums from the Garchomp in the back. And the Ninetales does have a focus dash, so it is faster than the Dondozo, which is important to know. Barely going to do any damage here with freeze dry. Order up going into the Dragonite will be able to take it out here. And yeah, now that the Dondozo is a steel type, means that, you know, this Ninetales here really isn't doing much to it. But yeah, maybe there is some shenanigans you can go for here if you lock it into order up and then, you know, it cannot hit the Ninetales. But then again, the Ninetales, it's just not doing any damage. So it's still gonna be very tough here for Olavi because this Garchomp is just gonna go down to an order up.
Yeah, but don't forget, freeze dry can freeze the Dondozo.
Oh no!
So you never know. I mean, when you're in a situation like that, you'd want to do whatever it takes in order to win, and, you know, play her out. So we just see the safe protect here from the Garchomp. I guess trying to see what the Dondozo wants to go for, and indeed it is the freeze dry. So you never know.
You never
Oh,
know,
there's
but
none.
I think that is Olavi's best out at this point because this Dondozo really does not care about this Ninetales at all.
Yeah.
And the only other Pokemon in the back for Olavi is, of course, that low HP Incineroar. And yeah, it is going to switch in here. You know, really just stalling some turns and desperately fishing for a freeze here with that freeze dry. That is really his only hope right now.
Yeah, I mean, if you do get the freeze, it is a chance. You just have to play it out all the way to the end with all that small damage. But we do see a critical hit happening right now. And yeah, this Snow Fox is just gonna get hammered down by this heavy fish right here. So thankfully, because of that Focus Sash, it gets to have one more turn to try and fish for that freeze. And right now, I guess it's a matter of, will this Incineroar switch back out to try and shuffle the Intimidate again? Or will it go for an actual fake out right now, as we do see?
Yeah, I think, again, at this point, you're fishing for that freeze. You did get a crit last turn, but even that didn't do a lot of damage. Still no freeze here yet. One more chance, and we saw Steinar already targeting down that Ninetales because, you know, the longer it stays on the field, the more likely those freezes are going to be.
Exactly.
But yeah, Ninetales being faster than Dondozo means that it definitely still has a chance here for that side effect. And the Ninetales is going to protect this time, probably predicting the Dondozo to go for another heavy slam, but it is just going to go for an order up here. The Mind Games are out of control right now.
Yeah, honestly, you'd naturally want to be afraid of the potential freeze. And on the part of Olavi, you're thinking to yourself, hey, it's very much possible if you think about it. But Steiner, being able to predict that, just goes straight for the Incineroar. I think he's just had enough with all these Intimidates being shuffled around and just wants to get rid of it already. He's like, oh, enough of this.
You also don't want to take a Flare Blitz.
Exactly.
And here, one more Freeze Strike coming out. Is it gonna get a freeze? No, freeze! The Wave Crash going into the Ninetales will take it out. That was an angry, angry Wave Crash there onto that Ninetales. And the Garch will get an opportunity here to go for a Stomping Tantrum. So we'll hit that Dondozo for super effective damage and does take it out. But of course, Steiner still has the Choice Scarf Tatsugiri, still has the Pawmot and the Talonflame in the back as well. So yeah, you're rid of the Dondozo, but you know, does that really help you in this situation?
Yeah, and you know, we could just see a Revival Blessing happening anyway. So there would just be a part 2 for the Dondozo, or as you know, every video gamer says, a phase 2. Of facing Dondozo, the raid boss. So things not looking too good for this lonesome Garchomp here, as it's against 3 Pokemon on the side of Steinar. And as we did mention earlier, this Tatsugiri having the Choice Scarf for when it matters most is going to matter right now, considering it could just throw out a fast Dragon Pulse or, you know, an Icy Wind or Draco Meteor if you want to play with less accuracy right now.
Yeah, Steiner reminding us of why we are playing Haze on our Primarinas, even if we have Throat Spray on them, because Dondozo is just that much of a threat if you do not have a safe counter for it. And yeah, Steiner taking that game 2-0 really just had the perfect